Let's take a moment to talk about advanced rules, which are essentially rules, but we're going into the advanced options here to look at all of the stipulations for creating the rule. Now, both folders and rules include a hierarchy in Outlook. In folders, that means that your main folder is the inbox. From there, you can create the same level folders or subfolders within existing folders. For rules, that means that Outlook will run the first rule listed, the one at the top, and then the second, and so forth and so on. Be aware of your hierarchy of rules. If the item is no longer there, for example, because you created a rule to move it out of somewhere else, the second rule can't be applied. All right, now let's look at, again, the stipulations for creating our advanced rules. You have three terms here. We're going to talk about the condition, the action, and the exception. When you create a rule, you're asking Outlook to look at all of the incoming emails and apply some sort of action if it meets a condition. What's a condition? It's what Outlook looks for when an email is received or sent. It's the criteria, or again, the thing it's looking for as it's coming into your email. Then we've got action. What's an action? Well, it's a verb, right? It's what is done with the email if the condition is met. Right? So if, for example, you want to move it into another folder, if you want to add some sort of priority to it, so forth and so on. And then we've got the exception. What's an exception? It's used to nullify the action. In other words, when another condition is present, it cancels out that action, what is done. All right, I'd like to give you an example of this. Have you ever heard the term, maybe when you were little, the phrase, your parents would say something along the lines of, if you clean your room, then we can go to the park. Unless you didn't feed the dog, right? If you clean your room, then we can go to the park, unless you didn't feed the dog, right? Guys and gals, that's an example of the three terms that we're talking about here. If you clean your room, well, that's the condition, right? That's the thing that Outlook would look for example, if it was analyzing that statement there. It's the criteria, right? If it's clean, then the action can be applied. If it's not clean, well, then there's no action that's applied. So if you clean your room is the condition, action would be the going to the park portion, right? If it finds that you did indeed clean your room, then we get to go to the park. Then comes the exception. Unless, right? What's the other condition that we're looking at here? Unless you didn't feed the dog. Guys and gals, if you forgot to feed Fido, then we don't get to go to the park, right? It nullifies the action of going to the park. So again, when we look at our advanced rules, right, through our advanced options, we're looking for the condition, the action, right? Those have to be there in the rules that we create. The exception doesn't have to be there though, right? Exceptions here again nullify the action, and you can stipulate something, another condition that it's looking for, but in this case, guys and gals, the exceptions do not have to be included. All right, Outlook. So let's talk about creating a folder structure in Outlook and then creating rules to take advantage of that folder structure. But before I do that, can I ask you a question? How manageable is your inbox right now? How many emails do you have in there? A lot. I'm willing to guess you have a lot of emails, right? That's unsolicited mail. It comes in whether we ask it to come in or not. In Outlook, you have several organizational tools that allow you to handle the type of email that comes in, right? The amount of email that comes in. You can tell Outlook to do a specific thing with specific emails. Now, one of the things that we use as an organizational structure are folders. Now, you'll notice here on the left-hand side that I've got listed here the same amount of folders that you guys do, right? I've got inbox, draft, sent items, so forth and so on. But I want you to notice that next to my inbox, I've got this little arrow here. That means that I've got more, right? I can expand my little arrow here and I can see more of a folder structure. Outlook allows you to create subfolders within the inbox, right? And even within a subfolder, you can create other folders, right? A folder hierarchy that's available to you here. So you'll notice that I've got this divided up by chapters, right? And by the types of assignments that we complete in Outlook. And that's because, guys and gals, I have to be able to quickly find your specific emails and then look at your emails that you sent to me and then grade you on them. Well, that's how I've created my folder structure here with chapters and assignments so that I can make it easy on myself to find your emails and then grade you on your work. All right, so how did I do that? Well, creating a folder, there's a couple of different ways, actually 3 different ways that you can do that in Outlook. First of all, guys and gals, I want you to notice that inbox is your highest folder, right? When we're talking about hierarchy here, it's the one that's created by default by our network administrator. It's part of Outlook. But we can create other folders there. Now, at the very top here in your menus, you've got the folder menu, right? Or the folder tab. I'm going to click on folder here, and you'll notice that I've got a whole bunch of different things that I can do, guys and gals, including in my new group here, I can click on new folder. Another way of doing this is I can right click directly onto the inbox, and it brings me over to my shortcut menu, and it allows me to create a brand new folder, right? So both of those are completely fine. You can do either one of those. They do the same thing here. They give you a place to add a new folder. In this example here, I'm going to call this the Chapter 6 folder, Chapter 6 example, so that we can refer to that, right? And later on, I'll go and delete it once I don't need it. But I want to show you why we would create, for example, a Chapter 6 example folder. So I want to give you a scenario. Let's say, for example, that you guys, or you specifically, have a client that emails you for a brand new project. Perhaps you have a peer that you're working on, or a group of people that you're working on for some sort of project, a fundraiser, something like that. The point is that sometimes we have specific emails with a criteria in them that we want to group together. Now, of course, we could use the search feature in Outlook, right, to find those specific emails, but that's not as efficient as grouping them together and making it easy for you to find what you need. Okay, in this case, we're going to pretend that we have a person who's emailed us, right, Yolanda Varela in this case, and Yolanda is going to go into my Chapter 6 example because for Chapter 6, right, for the next week, I'll be dealing with Yolanda, and I want all of her emails to be placed in one area. Now, I'm talking about creating a rule to move all of the emails from Yolanda into my Chapter 6 example folder. Now, there's 2 types of rules, guys and gals. The first one is called a quick rule, right? So I'm going to go back into my home tab so you can see what I'm talking about here. When I click on this email, a quick rule says, okay, I'm going to scan this email, Outlook says, I'm going to scan this email for specific conditions, right? For things that are present in this email, and then I'll give an option for those things, and I'll give some sort of action options as well. All right, what am I talking about, guys and gals? I'm talking about here in the Home tab, in the Move group here, I've got my rules. If I click on that, I've got some templates already set up, but I want to look at the Create Rule option. If I click on that, I get my Create Rule dialog box, right? And again, I consider this a quick rule because it allows you to quickly identify one of the conditions that are present in the email, and then I can apply some sort of action, right? But notice that these are kind of limited. In this case, I do indeed want it to be from Yolanda, right? Every email that is from Yolanda Varela is going to be going into a specific folder. So this is my condition, the thing it's looking for from Yolanda. The action is going to be that it's going to move every email from Yolanda into a specific folder. When I click on that specific folder, guys and gals, it opens up my folder structure here, right? And you can see from here, that I've got some other options here. Oh, I've got a demo in there. No, that's not what I want. I actually want the Chapter 6 example folder. So I have to click on the Chapter 6 example folder, right? I have to be very specific. I have to tell Outlook where to place that specific item. So I click on the Chapter 6 example folder. I click on OK, and there we go, right? Pretty quickly, I created a rule that if an email comes in from Yolanda, so from now on, all of the emails from Yolanda are going to automatically be placed into my Chapter 6 example. Okay, so very happy about that. But there's a problem with that, guys and gals. Can we pretend that I want every email from Yolanda to be placed in the Chapter 6 example folder unless, and here's the exception, unless it has an attachment. In which case, if there's an attachment, I don't want it to be placed inside of that folder, right? Well, do you see any area here in this quick rule that allows me to put in some sort of exception? Yeah, I don't either. So what can we do about that? Well, this is where we go into the advanced portion, right? Or advanced rules, or advanced options for the rules. So one more time. This quick rule allows me to quickly create a rule based on some sort of condition that's already present in the email, right? So the email has to be sitting inside of my inbox, and then it quickly allows me to select an action for that email, right? But again, I need an exception, and there's none here. What I'm going to do now, guys and gals, is I'm going to go into my advanced options here to create an advanced rule. And I want you to notice that I do indeed still have my condition. It's from Yolanda, right? But look at your templates. Look at all the other things that you could select here with specific words. Do you remember the example that I gave you? What if you guys are working on some sort of fundraiser, right? You would select with specific words, for example, and at the very bottom here, you'll notice that with the specific words in the body here in step 2, now I've got a link for specific words. In which case, I could say, you know what, the 2 conditions that I'm looking for is that it's from Yolanda and it says, for example, something about Ola, right? Because that's what it says here. Well, that's not really what I want to do now. I want to go ahead and take that off, so I would just take off the little tick mark here. But again, take some time to look through all of the different conditions that could be applied. If there is a blue link there, it means that you have to tell it what specific condition you're looking for, right? This is just a template. And then in step 2, you'll notice that it fills in those specific things that you're looking for. Now, this is a wizard, right? It's designed to guide you through the process. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. Well, what do you want to do with the message, right? So by default, the Stop Processing More Rules is turned on. We're going to go ahead and leave that on. But the thing that I chose was move it to a specified folder, right? That has a tick mark. It's checked as being on. If you look at step 2 here, the specific folder it's going to move it to is chapter 6. Again, I did that when I was doing the quick rule. Click on Next. Here's step 3, right? And here's where your exceptions are. All right, guys and gals, so in this case, there's a lot of templates, right? A lot of templates where you could choose to create an exception. It's a different criteria, right? And if it finds that criteria, then it says, never mind, don't apply the action. So in this case, guys and gals, we have lots of different criteria that we could do here. So if I wanted to, for example, specify a word or set an importance, if it's really important, then I don't want it to go into the folder, so forth and so on. Right? Look at all the different types of, again, exceptions that we could apply here. In this case, to make it easy, I'm going to say, you know what, if it is, for example, looking for my stuff here, if it's got an importance, let's just do that one, right? If it's got an importance, guys and gals, then I want to go ahead and say, you know what, if it's marked as super important, then I do not want it to be moved into that chapter 6 folder. Instead, it's going to stay inside of my inbox, right? So again, I created an exception. We did that through the advanced options because this is an advanced rule. All right, so down here, guys and gals, notice that it says except if it is marked as importance. But importance is a general term. I have to go in and I have to say, you know what kind of importance? Well, not normal. If it's a high importance email, right, where Yolanda has set this as high, then I want it to, let me choose normal, high, click on OK. If it says high, then that here is going to nullify the action of moving it to the chapter 6 example folder. Okay, now remember, it nullifies the action. I'm going to go ahead and do next here. Then it tells me to, step 1, specify a name for this rule. So this is important, Outlook. When you create your rules, you want your rules to have some sort of definitive idea, or for you to have some sort of definitive idea as to what is contained in the rule. So what you name your rule should give you a good clue as to what types of conditions, right, actions or exceptions are included in that rule. So I'm going to call this Yolanda Varela for me, right? That's pretty descriptive. For you, be careful what it is that you call these. If you have more than one rule for Yolanda Varela, for example, then maybe in the second rule you could put in there whatever your exception was or what the criteria was. Again, this is for you to understand what type of stipulations you included. Okay, so the turn on this rule is already by default on, but I want you to notice this here. It says, run this rule now on messages already in the inbox. Now that means, guys and gals, that the emails that have come in from Yolanda have already been placed in my inbox, right? If I click on run this rule now, what's going to happen is, first of all, before I click on run this rule now, every email that comes in from Yolanda is going to be evaluated for this condition, right? And also for the exception. And because I clicked on run this rule now, it's also going to look at the emails placed inside of my inbox right now to clean up that inbox for me, right? To apply that specific rule. Okay, so I've got these set up. I'm going to go ahead and click on finish. And it took just a moment to do that because it really only found one example, right? But I want you to notice something. Do you notice that the Yolanda Varela email is no longer inside of my inbox? Where could it be? What do you think? Yep, it's over here, guys and gals, in my Chapter 6 example folder. Now if I click on that and notice that I do indeed have a number there telling me that there's one, if I click on that, guys and gals, there it is. There's my Yolanda Varela sample email that she sent me, right? It has now been placed inside of my Chapter 6 example folder. And from now on, guys and gals, all of the emails that come from Yolanda are going to go into my Chapter 6 example unless, do you remember the unless? Unless they're marked with high importance. Okay, so we looked at email structures. We looked at how to create a rule, right? Remember, guys and gals, that you can create a quick rule based on any email inside of your inbox. But if you want to go into your advanced rules, you have to go into the advanced options. I also want to show you that manage rules and alerts dialog box. It's telling me that I've got an error in there because I've done some things, moving things around here. Notice, guys and gals, that my Yolanda Varela rule that I just created is at the very top here. Right? So there is a hierarchy in rules as well. That means that the rule at the very top is going to run first. So be careful as you're creating your rules to make sure that those are in the order that you want them to run. Now, how would you change the order if you needed to? You could click on these, guys and gals, click on whatever rule it is that you want to move the order of, and you can use your move down or move up arrows to make sure, right, let me move this all the way down and then all the way back up, right, to make sure that these rules are running in the order that you want them to be running in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that out. And remind you, guys and gals, that when you're creating your rules, right, there is a hierarchy there. We have our quick rule, which is based on an email that's already, based on criteria on an email that's already in your inbox. But then the advanced options or advanced rules allow you to stipulate a lot more conditions and also an exception.